Here's a very important medical question because it could have devastating effects. How often do you check your blood pressure? Well, today is World Hypertension Day. The theme is to measure accurately and control it. And of course, if you do that, you'll live longer. The World Health Organization saying half of those with hypertension are actually unaware that they have it. Let's bring in Head of Wellness at Discovery Vitality, Mosima Mabunda, joining us this morning. Dr. Mosima Mabunda joining us. Doc, good to have you with us. I feel like I want to ask an obvious question, so bear with me. You're the expert here. What exactly is hypertension?
Good morning, and thank you for having me today on World Hypertension Day. Hypertension is also known as high blood pressure. And it's a word that many people have heard before. And in essence, it just means that the pressure in your blood vessels is higher than what it should be. And that typically means that when your heart is pumping, it's working out against a force that is higher than it normally should be. What people would be familiar with, those that have checked blood pressure, is it's measured in two numbers. There's a number on top and a number at the bottom. So when it is said that your blood pressure is within the normal range, it's when it's less than 120/80. And when you are told that you have high blood pressure, it's when it is above 140 divided by 90.
So that's where we hear the terms like systolic and diastolic, when your doctor's busy pumping up your arm and he starts looking a bit worrying. He's either smiling or he's cringing. There's not much of a difference if you're not looking after blood pressure. All right. So what actually causes this on a day-to-day basis? Is there something that most people wouldn't know could be causing hypertension?
So the interesting thing with high blood pressure, I think the first thing to mention is it's fairly silent, right? You hardly ever know that you have it. There are risk factors that fortunately are within our control that if you tend to manage them well, you will reduce the risk of high blood pressure. For example, if you lead a healthy lifestyle and you eat healthy, and by that I mean a diet that is rich in vegetables, that is rich in fruits, whole grains, definitely very low amounts of salt, you stand a chance of reducing your risk of high blood pressure. And for many of those who have actually interacted with their clinicians or with their nurses, whether you were told that you have high blood pressure or not, one of the things that would have been emphasized is the importance of eating a healthy diet that is rich in fruits and vegetables, because you get the necessary nutrients and you get your calcium and potassiums that help to counter that effect of sodium. But equally so, things like exercising and keeping active have been shown to reduce the risk of high blood pressure. And one of the cornerstone of blood pressure management or reducing the risk, when they say lifestyle management or lifestyle interventions, your clinician would typically encourage you to eat healthy, but also to exercise. And coupled with that, you would be encouraged to also try and as much as you can to maintain a healthy weight, because we know that obesity is also linked with a risk in high blood pressure. So for me, the encouraging thing is, though high blood pressure is very common, it can be lethal and leads to very life-threatening health consequences. There are things that we can do to actually reduce our risks. And I just want to highlight that, yes, healthy lifestyles are important, but as I mentioned earlier, you will hardly ever know that you have high blood pressure. So the importance of actually going to screen cannot be emphasized enough, because that's where many people find out that their blood pressure is higher than it should be.
So for those who perhaps don't like going to doctors, perhaps also, let's be fair as well, doctor, there might be a lot of people watching who can't afford to go to a doctor or make their way to a clinic. Are there any symptoms whatsoever that somebody may be experiencing that could perhaps alert them that there might be something off with the blood pressure? It might not be high blood pressure necessarily, or very high blood pressure, 180/120, but maybe they should have it checked out. Any kind of symptoms you can tell people to look out for?
So before we get to the symptoms, I think for me, the beauty with something like high blood pressure is you can go to any clinic, right? You don't even need to go to your GP. You can go to any clinic. You will be able to get your blood pressure measured at no cost. So the privilege we have in South Africa is many of the clinics are widespread, and at the very least, there almost always is a high blood pressure. So I want to encourage everyone that money should not be a barrier. Any clinic next to you should be able to give you your blood pressure reading and guide you accordingly. And then to your specific question around symptoms, unfortunately, because it's known as the silent killer for a reason, by the time you experience any symptoms and complications, it certainly means you're having complications, right? I mean, it's not uncommon where you hear people saying, oh, someone was sitting okay and like they had a stroke, and someone was apparently okay and they had a heart attack. So it's not reliable to say you will wait for symptoms. And the symptoms, as we know, are shared by many conditions. If someone says you have a headache, it doesn't mean it's high blood pressure. But the key message for me here is it is easily accessible to measure blood pressure. It should not cost you anything if you want to use your clinic. If you can afford to go to a pharmacy, you can also do it there, or your GP. But another thing, those that can afford to buy home monitoring blood pressure machines at pharmacies. I know that at Vitality, we actually give our members cash back for purchasing those. You can also monitor it in the comfort of your own home. And for me, this is because everybody knows that this is a burden not only in South Africa, but across the globe. And early detection actually stands us in good stead to help manage it and prevent complications.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Earlier detection is obviously much better than trying to treat it. What do they always say? Prevention, better than treatment, I think is how the saying goes. Just as I start saying goodbye to you, Doctor, once you are, hopefully you're not, but if someone is treated with high blood pressure, very high blood pressure, they would go into some kind of medication. I imagine the word chronic is going to come in here. Can you ever come off of that? Or once you've been diagnosed with very high blood pressure or hypertension, if we're using the correct term, can you ever come off the medication? Can you ever get rid of hypertension once you've been diagnosed with it?
Very good question. So high blood pressure is a lifelong condition. It can be very well managed, and you find that you can get away with either no medication or very little medication. I have seen instances where people maybe reduce the number of medications that they've been on, but and people that have managed their hypertension, but to completely say you are cured from hypertension, have not come across that. But I think for me, the underlying message to the question you're asking is hypertension can be well managed if you adhere to what your clinician tell you. I can give you an example of my mom, who used to be on 2 medications at some point. Now she's taken 1 at a very low dose, because in addition to the medication, you adhere to the lifestyle measure that helps to reduce blood pressure. So many people manage it very well, and you might not even know that they have it.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want. It's being managed to a point where no one can even suggest you've got it, only your medical practitioner. Doctor, I really appreciate your time. Such an important discussion, so easy as well to prevent. Dr. Mosima Mabunda from Discovery Vitality taking a look at what is Hypertension Day. It's so easy. Just go to a local clinic, go to a pharmacy. It doesn't have to be a doctor's appointment. Just get your blood pressure checked. You want to be 120/80, or at least as close to that as possible. Do it on the way home. Maybe you're going grocery shopping. Just pop in at the pharmacy next door if you can, and just make sure you are okay.